What began as a small 8-bit trip through Kanto has grown into the open-world adventures we play on the Switch today. So grab a cup of tea and get comfortable. This is the story of every major Pokémon game released. This is where the global phenomenon began. Red and Green were a technical mess, a collection of bugs and glitches held together by a revolutionary idea: catching, battling, and trading monsters. Critics were initially lukewarm, but the social dimension, the need to trade to complete your Pokédex, turned it into a cultural event. It's a rough, unbalanced game, but its sheer ambition and the foundation it laid for an entire industry make it an undeniable all-time classic. Released as a special edition in Japan, Pokémon Blue was essentially a slightly polished version of Red and Green with updated sprites and a few bug fixes. It was later used as the basis for the international Red and Blue releases. For Japanese fans, it was a welcome visual upgrade, but for the rest of the world, it was simply the definitive way to experience the original Kanto journey. The first, third version, Pokémon Yellow, was a direct tie-in to the anime, forcing you to start with a non-evolving Pikachu who followed you everywhere. It added color to the Game Boy Color, introduced the iconic Team Rocket trio, and gave the game a much-needed personality injection. While the core gameplay was unchanged, this version is beloved for its charm and for being the definitive Kanto experience for many fans who grew up watching the show. The original Pokémon Stadium on the Nintendo 64 was a simple concept. Bring your Game Boy Pokémon to life in glorious 3D. The Japanese version was limited, only featuring 42 Pokémon, but it was a technological marvel that let players finally see their team duke it out on the big screen. It was more of a tech demo and the companion piece than a full game, but it perfectly captured the spectacle of Pokémon battles. This Game Boy Color spin-off took the physical TCG and translated it into a surprisingly deep and addictive RPG. It was a brilliant move, giving players a single-player campaign to learn the complex card game rules. Critics praised it as one of the best card game adaptations ever made. It's a testament to the franchise's versatility, proving that the Pokémon formula could thrive outside of the traditional monster-catching genre. A unique on-rails photography game for the Nintendo 64, Pokémon Snap was a relaxing, charming departure from the main series. Instead of battling, you were tasked with capturing the perfect picture of wild Pokémon in their natural habitats. It was a critical darling, praised for its creativity and the joy of discovery. It remains a beloved cult classic, proving that sometimes the best way to interact with Pokémon is to simply observe them. Pokémon Pinball was a simple but effective spin-off for the Game Boy Color, combining the addictive nature of pinball with the monster-catching loop. It even featured a built-in rumble feature in the cartridge, a massive novelty at the time. Critics called it a fun, charming distraction, and a great example of a licensed game that was more than just a cash-in. It's the perfect just one more game handheld experience. Gold and Silver are often cited as the peak of the franchise. They doubled the Pokédex, introduced the day-night cycle, breeding, and 2 new types. But the real masterstroke was the post-game, the entire Kanto region. Critics were unanimous in their praise, calling it a near-perfect sequel that refined every aspect of the original. It set a bar for content and innovation that the series has struggled to reach ever since. The definitive version of Generation 2, Pokémon Crystal, introduced the Battle Tower, animated sprites, and most importantly, the option to play as a female character for the first time. It was a quality-of-life upgrade that cemented the game's status as a fan favorite. While it didn't revolutionize the formula, it polished Gold and Silver to a mirror sheen, making it the best way to experience the Johto region. A Pokemon-themed version of the classic panel-to-pawn puzzle game, Puzzle Challenge was a fast-paced, addictive title for the Game Boy Color. It was praised for its tight mechanics and its ability to seamlessly integrate the Pokemon aesthetic. It's a perfect example of a spin-off that stands on its own merits as a great puzzle game, even if you strip away the Pokemon branding. Ruby and Sapphire were a massive leap to the Game Boy Advance, introducing double battles, abilities, and the divisive concepts of weather and environmental teams. Critics were generally positive, but some fans were initially resistant to the soft reboot, which limited the number of old Pokemon available. It's a game that aged incredibly well, now recognized for its strong world building and for introducing mechanics that are now core to the series. The first true Pokemon RPG on a home console, Pokemon Colosseum for the GameCube, was a darker, story-driven adventure focused on snagging corrupted shadow Pokemon. It was a bold departure from the main series, featuring a fully 3D world and a focus on double battles. Critics loved the mature tone and the unique setting, making it a beloved if non-traditional entry that proved the franchise could handle a more serious narrative. These were the first main series remakes, bringing the original Kanto journey to the Game Boy Advance with Generation 3's mechanics and graphics. Critics praised the faithful recreation and the addition of the Sevi Islands post-game content. They are widely considered the definitive way to experience the Gen 1 story, successfully blending nostalgia with modern quality of life improvements. The third version of the Hoenn region, Pokémon Emerald, is often hailed as the best third version ever. It combined the two rival teams, added the Battle Frontier, a massive challenging post-game facility, and featured animated sprites. It was a massive content upgrade that critics and fans adored. Emerald is the gold standard for what a definitive edition of a Pokemon game should be. This spin-off launched a beloved sub-series, putting the player in the shoes of a Pokemon who forms a rescue team. It was a roguelike dungeon crawler with a surprisingly emotional, story-driven focus. Critics were mixed on the repetitive gameplay, but the game's heartfelt narrative and unique perspective on the Pokemon world earned it a massive, dedicated fan base. Pokémon Ranger was a unique DS spin-off that used the touchscreen for its core mechanic, drawing circles around wild Pokémon to capture them temporarily. It was a fun, fresh concept that critics enjoyed, but the repetitive nature of the circling mechanic eventually wore thin. It's a solid, if short-lived, experiment that showcased the DS's unique capabilities. The jump to the Nintendo DS brought the physical special split to moves, which fundamentally changed competitive play. Diamond and Pearl were criticized for being slow, but they introduced the massive Sinnoh region and a deep lore focused on time and space. They were a huge commercial success, and while they have some pacing issues, they are remembered fondly for their excellent music and the introduction of the global trade system. Much like Emerald, Pokémon Platinum is the definitive Sinnoh experience. It fixed the speed issues of Diamond and Pearl, added a massive new post-game area, and expanded the story with the mysterious Distortion world. Critics praised it as a vast improvement, making it one of the most content-rich games in the series. It's the version that all Sinnoh fans agree is the best. Pokémon Rumble was a simple hack-and-slash action game featuring toy Pokémon. Released on WiiWare, it was a fun, chaotic brawler that was perfect for quick, mindless fun. It was a minor spin-off that launched a surprisingly long-running sub-series, proving that the franchise could succeed with a simple, arcade-style gameplay loop. These remakes of Gold and Silver are often called the best games in the entire franchise. They retained the massive two-region structure, added the Battle Frontier from Platinum, and brought back the beloved feature of having your lead Pokemon follow you. Critics gave them near-perfect scores. They are the ultimate love letter to the series' past, packed with content and polish. Black and White were a soft reboot, only featuring new Pokemon until the post-game. This forced players to engage with the new designs, which was initially divisive. However, the game is now universally praised for its mature, complex story and its philosophical villain, N. Critics called it a bold, refreshing change of pace, and it's now widely considered to have the best narrative in the series. The first direct sequels in the main series, Black 2 and White 2, continued the story 2 years later. They offered a massive Pokédex from the start, a huge amount of post-game content, and the challenging Pokémon World Tournament. Critics loved the sheer volume of content and the refined gameplay. They are the culmination of the DS era and a perfect example of a sequel done right. A brilliant, unexpected crossover with the Nobunaga's Ambition strategy series, Pokémon Conquest was a turn-based tactical RPG for the DS. Critics called it one of the best spin-offs ever made, praising its deep strategy and unique feudal Japan setting. It's a niche masterpiece that proved the Pokémon formula could be successfully adapted to the most complex of genres. The jump to the Nintendo 3DS brought the series into full 3D and introduced the fairy type, which finally balanced the competitive scene. X and Y were a massive commercial success, but critics and fans found the story and post-game content lacking. They are remembered for introducing Mega Evolutions and for being a smooth, accessible entry point, but they are often criticized for their lack of challenge and content depth. These remakes of Ruby and Sapphire were a visual spectacle on the 3DS, bringing back the Hoenn region with stunning 3D graphics. They added the fantastic Delta episode post-game and the ability to soar through the sky on a Mega Latios. Critics loved the faithful recreation and the new features, making them a strong entry, though some fans missed the battle frontier from the original Emerald. A fighting game developed by the creators of Tekken, Pokkén Tournament was a unique blend of arena fighting and traditional 2D combat. It was praised for its deep mechanics and gorgeous graphics, offering a fresh take on Pokémon battles. It's a solid, competitive fighter that proved the franchise could hold its own in the fighting game genre, even if it had a smaller roster than fans hoped for. Sun and Moon shook up the formula by replacing gyms with the Island Challenge, focusing heavily on narrative and character development. Critics praised the beautiful Alola region and the compelling story. However, the game was heavily criticized for its excessive cutscenes and hand-holding. It's a game with a fantastic atmosphere and lore, but one that sacrifices player freedom for cinematic storytelling. This was a bizarre cinematic adventure game where you partner with a coffee-loving, talking Pikachu who acts like a hard-boiled detective. It was a huge risk that paid off, praised for its charming characters and unique tone. It's a delightful, story-focused spin-off that proved the franchise could work in a completely different narrative genre, leading directly to the successful live-action movie. Pokémon GO was a cultural phenomenon that brought Pokémon into the real world using augmented reality. Its launch was a global event, with millions of people walking outside to catch Pokémon. While the initial game was simple, it has evolved into a massive, feature-rich live service. It's the most commercially successful spin-off of all time, fundamentally changing how people interact with the franchise and with their local communities. These enhanced versions of Sun and Moon were the final main series games on the 3DS. They added a new, darker story focused on the Ultra Recon Squad and a massive post-game with the Battle Agency. Critics were generally positive, but many fans felt they were too similar to the originals. They are a content-packed send-off for the 3DS, but they represent the end of the third version era. Pokémon Quest was a free-to-start mobile and Switch game featuring a unique, blocky art style. It was a simple auto-battler where you collected and trained Pokémon in a simplified tap-based format. It was a charming, low-stakes distraction that was praised for its cute aesthetic. It's a fun, quick time killer that successfully translated the core loop into a casual mobile experience. These were the first main series games on the Nintendo Switch, serving as a simplified remake of Yellow and a bridge for Pokémon GO players. They removed wild Pokémon battles and simplified the mechanics. Critics were mixed, praising the visuals and the return to Kanto, but criticizing the lack of challenge. They are a beautiful, accessible, but ultimately polarizing entry in the main series. Sword and Shield were the first mainline games to face massive fan backlash, primarily due to the controversial decision to cut the national Pokédex. Despite the Dexit controversy, critics gave the games high marks, praising the wild area and the new Dynamax mechanic. They are a commercially successful but divisive entry that marked a major shift in the series' development philosophy. Pokémon UNITE is a free-to-play 5 vs 5 multiplayer online battle arena, or MOBA. It was a massive, successful genre leap for the franchise, praised for its accessible yet deep team-based gameplay. Critics loved the fast-paced action and the faithful representation of the Pokémon. It's a perfect example of a spin-off that successfully competes with the biggest games in its genre. These were faithful but controversial remakes of the Gen 4 games. Critics and fans were divided on the chibi art style and the lack of the quality of life improvements from Platinum. They are a nostalgic trip for Sinnoh fans, but they are widely considered the weakest main series remakes, often overshadowed by the game that would follow just a few months later. Pokémon Legends Arceus was a revolutionary departure, set in an ancient, semi-open world with a focus on action RPG mechanics and a completely new catching system. Critics and fans hailed it as the fresh start the series needed, praising its innovative gameplay loop and focus on the Pokémon ecosystem. Despite its graphical shortcomings, it is a critical darling and a massive success that redefined the franchise's future. The first fully open-world main series games, Scarlet and Violet, offered unprecedented player freedom and a deeply emotional story. However, they were plagued by severe technical issues, bugs, and poor performance at launch. Critics praised the core gameplay and narrative, but the technical state of the game remains a major point of contention. They are a brilliant yet broken vision of the series' future. The most bizarre spin-off yet, Pokémon Sleep, is a mobile app that gamifies your sleep. You leave your phone by your bed, and the app tracks your sleep patterns to discover new Pokémon. It's a simple, charming utility that critics found surprisingly effective as a sleep aid. It's a perfect example of the franchise's willingness to experiment, turning a daily necessity into a fun Pokémon experience. The newest entry, Legends ZA, returned to the action RPG style but confined the adventure to a single massive city. Critics praised the refined battle system and the return of Mega Evolutions, but the city-only setting and persistent technical issues on the base Switch led to a polarized reception. It's a bold, ambitious experiment that, much like its predecessor, pushes the series forward, but not without significant growing pains. From the Game Boy to the Nintendo Switch, the Pokémon franchise has constantly evolved, experimented, and redefined what a monster-catching game can be. Which Pokémon game is your favorite? Let us know in the comments below.
Please subscribe.